All right, we'll see if people show up to the stream today. They just canceled Wimbledon. I don't remember when Wimbledon usually is, though. I feel like that's usually a long time. Hello to whoever just stopped in. Hello to whoever else just stopped in. I'm going to wait a couple minutes before we start talking about stuff. You can start, if you have any questions, just writing them in the chat. But I'm going to give a couple minutes for people to trickle in after they saw that email before I really start going into anything specific that other people might also be curious about. But if you have any specific questions, write them in the chat. And when I get started in like 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes, chatting about stuff, I'll start with those. Hello, hello. A couple people just jumped in, it looks like. I will start chatting about some things scheduling wise and everything in like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But if you have any questions, type them into the chat and I'll make sure that I start with whatever questions you have. But I want to give a couple minutes for people to trickle in. Hi, Michelle. I'll chat about that in like 1 more minute. I'll get started, but I'll start with that. All right, so we have 5 here, just dropped to 4. So someone's probably popping in and out because they're probably on a cell phone, and that can happen a lot with YouTube. One thing that I will ask you guys to email me about or type in the chat room here is if you'd rather do these chat rooms through YouTube or through Zoom. My other classes brought up a really important point with Zoom, and that's that it takes a lot more bandwidth with internet. Um, so this was just easier for them to consistently be able to use if they wanted to ask me questions. We can obviously use Zoom. Uh, that can be nice that I get to actually see who's here as well. Um, but that really is up to you guys. I will bring that up later on with an announcement. But right now, we'll do this through YouTube because it seemed to be the consensus that I picked up from other classes. Zoom is fantastic, though. If you haven't been using Zoom, it's a great tool that you can be using to like stay in touch with family and friends. Um, but All right, we'll get started chatting about some things. Hopefully, some people trickle in and out. These um, these like office hour type of live streams are designed for people to pop in, pop out. I'll always talk about some things at the beginning, probably twice towards the beginning and towards like half an hour in. It's just about upcoming schedule, and that's going to be just like when we would be in the classroom. That first 5 minutes that I'm always talking about what's coming up. So, talking specifically about Michelle asked about how class is going to work next Wednesday. So let me start with that. Then we'll talk about whole big picture of how everything's going to look moving forward. So every week from here on out is going to work asynchronously. What that means is it's not going to be that you have to be logged into your computer from 11 o'clock until 2 o'clock on Wednesday for assignments. You're going to be able to do whatever the assignment I give you, you'll be able to do anytime from Monday to Friday within specific um, requirements. So for next week, the only assignment, the thing that I'm going to grade every week, I'll have something that I'm grading for you, and then I'll have a whole bunch of information that you can review on your own time. The other information that I'm going to have for you is going to be almost always YouTube videos. I'll post a lecture, which I try to keep to about 10 minutes of me going over something from the PowerPoint. I try to aim for 10 minutes because 10 minutes I think is a good amount of time that everyone would watch it. If it gets to be a little too long, then people might be zoning out a little bit through it. So I will ask that everyone watch the full 10 minutes of my video lecture. I won't then be going over the entirety of a PowerPoint. I'll be going over usually something particularly important. Most often something that's going to relate to an assignment that we have. I'll always post some extra complimentary videos for you as well. For next week, it's going to be all about memories. So the assignment for next week is going to be a discussion board. The one thing that I will hope and that I'll bring up in an announcement as well is that you all from last week when the design was about making sure that you can use everything on Blackboard, that you all are comfortable submitting an assignment through Blackboard and answering a discussion board through Blackboard. I can post like a practice example type of discussion board, but the consensus from the school seemed to be to just let you guys figure out that and not have each class do it, so that way it'd be done differently. So that's why I didn't post one for you, but it's not like it's hard to just post something that's ungraded just so you can test your skill kind of thing. What I would think makes more sense, just try to make that post on the memory discussion board earlier, so that way if you do run into any trouble, you have plenty of time to troubleshoot, to ask me questions, and we'll figure things out there. I can always screencast things really easily. I can't do that on YouTube with my live streams. My computer isn't savvy enough to do it, but I can do that, I believe, through Zoom. But what I usually use when I screencast things is I have a different program that I'll record it. I just can't record it live with you. And then I can upload it to YouTube. So you would just click on the link just like you would for any YouTube video. And it'll be a screencast of me doing whatever, showing you whatever needs to be done. And I'll do that for the memory discussion board. I just posted the question for that yesterday. So you can see that technically. So next week, we'll have a discussion board. The way that I'm going to do the discussion boards when they're done, and we'll be doing them for the next 2 weeks, is I will require that you make your main post by Wednesday. Doesn't have to be by class time. I'm just going to say by Wednesday. So Wednesday at 11:30 p.m. would be fine with me. For the discussion board next week, you're going to have a question that you're answering, and then you're going to have to reply to 2 different classmates' posts. So I'm going to ask that you answer that question by Wednesday end of day. So that way you have Thursday and Friday that you have to reply to 2 classmates' posts. The requirement for that post that you make by Wednesday, it has to be 250 words or more. And I'm not going to count the words. That equals a 1-page double-spaced paper, basically. And that's what I'm looking for. So to give you an idea, 1 page double-spaced for a paper, just answering that question that you have for the week. One thing that I do when I teach online that I think makes a lot of sense, I know my students in my online classes really like it, is having you guys post a YouTube clip or a meme that kind of just summarizes everything you're talking about. So I think we'll probably keep that. Um, that you could post something that summarizes what you were talking about. If you guys want, we can kind of keep that as like an optional thing, but I'm not going to require to do that. That you'll then have to reply to two classmates either Thursday or Friday. They'll be due by end of the day Friday, so everything for our class should be between Monday and Friday, nothing on the weekends. Um, the only thing with those responses to two classmates is that they aren't like a one liner type of thing. I don't want one sentence replies, but I also don't want big essays as replies. 2 to 3 sentences is fine when you're replying to a classmate. That's going to be how next week's work. The 1 and 2 weeks will work a little differently because in 2 weeks we're going to have our group discussion assignments on a discussion board. So I'll probably get to explaining that in a few minutes. But next week's class is going to be about the topic memory. I'm going to post a lot of information in that folder that's in the PowerPoints and articles folder. I loaded some folders there. Right now they're empty, but probably by Friday end of day, you will see information in all of them. The one that's for memory, you're going to see information tomorrow be posted in there. And in that folder for next week, you're going to see a bunch of YouTube clips. One is a lecture from me. One will probably be a screencast from me, just showing you how to post on the discussion board. Probably, I wouldn't say maybe 2 different videos that'll be just extra information. The PowerPoint for the week, and then you just take a look at the book chapter for the week. And that's what you're going to see in those folders pretty much every week. There always will be one assignment. It's not always going to be a discussion board. Sometimes it'll be an essay or something like that. But every week we'll have something that you submit to me for a grade. And then you can see the grade weights on the syllabus. I know the syllabus for a few after I get through everyone's questions. So let me get to Carly. I saw you posted something. I haven't actually read what you said, but let me get to that. Carly, are you talking about for a discussion board question? It looks like that's what. So two parts to that. Once you submit your post, it is saved. You can always go back and see your discussion. But before you click submit, it's not saved. So one recommendation that I strongly recommend, when you write your discussion post, write it in a normal word processor, whatever you normally would use, like Microsoft Word or something, simply because that auto saves while you're going. So if your computer happened to crash for some reason, you don't lose your work then. So they save if I post them to YouTube. As long as I get people here that I'm talking, I will post them to YouTube. But I'll do these live streams every Wednesday from probably 11:30 to 12:30. If I get a Wednesday where one person shows up, asks me one question, that's all we do, then I won't post it to YouTube because it's just a waste of an hour for one question. But as long as we have people here that we're talking about things consistently, then I will post them to YouTube so you can look at them later. So for this one, for sure, I'll have it saved to YouTube. And then it's just always labeled by the date. So you just have to look because I'm teaching uh, plenty of other classes. So I'm doing these live streams every single day. You just have to make sure you find the right date. So for today, April 1st will be for this class. I don't label them by the specific class because sometimes I invite other classes into it. Like you guys saw, I sent you an announcement inviting you to a different class's stream just because they didn't show up. There wasn't that much to talk about that day. So I invited you. So I don't label them by the class because sometimes that'll get confusing, I think. Because I might be inviting different people into it. So just make sure if you're looking for this, when I'm talking about just some basic stuff, that you would be looking at the April 1st one. When I need to talk about more specifics about something, I always post a specific video dedicated to that, though. So I don't think you'll probably need to go back to these live streams too often. But in case you did, if you asked me a question, you wanted my specific answer, they will be there, as long as it's not something that, like, one person showed up, asked me one question, and it's 50 minutes of me just kind of hanging around watching TV or drinking coffee or something like that. Uh, so Carly, and the other question you asked about the practice discussion board. So I was planning on doing something for extra credit, but the school kind of changed their stance on this. They wanted everyone to get their practice for doing this from what my take was from the school. Um, so I didn't actually post that. I can post that just for practice, but they didn't really want it to be for extra credit, because they wanted you guys to just get your practice, I guess, from whatever the school's training was. Did you guys get something like that, where it was kind of, my assumption from what a different school did was you would basically just have a sandbox, that you would just go into and just show you how to use the different parts of Blackboard. But I don't know for sure that you got that. I'm not as connected, um, for like the IT part of things here. So I can post something just so that you can, make sure that you guys can post things. But the doing that as an assignment the last week, they didn't want me to do that. They wanted it to be just dedicated for, um, learning how to do things, and not like, even though it's extra credit, the idea being, if someone can't figure it out, doesn't get the extra credit, they feel behind just because other people are getting the extra credit. So it wasn't something that was kind of desired, I guess. I think, I hope it kind of goes without saying, from not just me, from all of your professors, with dealing with the changes of everything going online. When it comes to grading at the end of the semester, things will definitely be putting some thought to making things advantageous for you. Even if I'm not going to now do that with extra credit, if I'm looking at things and it's, you were doing really, really well, then we went online and all of a sudden your consistent A's turned into consistent B's, I'm going to factor things like that in. And that's when, at the end of the semester, I can do an extra credit assignment just like I would for an in-person class. But for the discussion, just like testing that you can do it, that I'm not going to now do as extra credit. And since I have five of you guys here, I'm going to go. The next thing I'm going to go into will be the syllabus, unless you have any questions. The one thing I want to ask you guys, since I have five of you here, is YouTube. Is this something that you would be comfortable if I'm doing the live streams on YouTube? Do you have a big preference if I was to do that on Zoom? Um, I don't even know if you were using Zoom for other classes or for, just life. If you aren't, I definitely do recommend looking into Zoom. It's fantastic. Um, the normal account, I think you only get a 15-minute call, but you can always just redial the call. Cool. Okay. In which case, as long as this works and you can chat. So if anyone's in here that can't chat because they only have a guest account, you can shoot me an email and let me know that. Usually it's really easy to just, have your name basically come up that you can talk on this, but just in case you needed something. Microsoft Teams, they just changed so much about, that package, that I actually am not too familiar with Microsoft Teams right now. So I'd rather avoid Microsoft Teams and stick to either Zoom or YouTube. But I think Teams is very similar to Zoom or to Google Hangouts a little bit too. Okay. So between that, I can always switch it to Zoom. I have the business account for Zoom, so I can switch it over anytime we specifically needed to. I think unless I get some email saying the contrary, I'll do these over YouTube. And if we ever want to meet one on one and you have Zoom, we'll do those over Zoom. Um, and we'll just do the big class things over YouTube, unless I get some emails that I couldn't ask a question on YouTube or something like that. If you do ever need to ask me any questions and you can't use this chat for some reason, just email me the question. I'm going to check my email every like 15 minutes or something while I'm doing these. And if I get an email, a message that way, I can still talk while I'm on YouTube about it. Let me really quickly check that because I haven't checked that yet. Okay, so nothing right now. So the other thing that I want to make mention to that I know I want to talk about, and then it's just whatever you guys want to talk about. So I don't have anything specific I want to mention about the exam unless you have questions for it. But the one other thing that I do want to specifically mention today is the syllabus. So I did post an updated version of the syllabus for you. That updated version of the syllabus is now the only version that's up there. And if you load up the document, I color coded the changes. Um, I have to, I could have missed something, so please don't like if there's something that didn't get color coded, just let me know. Don't think that means that it's not changed. If you think it is changed, it might be. But I color coded what was changed to make it as easy to see, and I definitely color coded some of the big places where they're mentioned, so the schedule and the grade structure changes. So I'm going to actually load up the document, so I won't see the chat for the next couple minutes, but I'll get to any questions that you have in a couple minutes. But if you're looking at the syllabus, if you scroll down to the schedule, so if you scroll down to the next to last page of the syllabus, you'll see I highlighted basically everything from spring break in red, saying that we're now not doing it exactly the same way because now we're online. And then right below in blue, there is the change schedule. So what you have on the change schedule is not too different in terms of topics or anything like that. We're still going to cover the same chapters in the class and everything like that. But now I labeled it by the dates that we're going to do it as opposed to by the week. And the one big, I guess, thing is that you'll see there's a week dedicated now to our group discussion assignments, and there's now not a specific class that's dedicated to talking about our final papers. And I'm going to mention both of those. So the group discussion assignment I'll mention after I talk about it, the rest of the scheduling changes. But how we'll do the group discussions, those are the article discussions that we have left. We should have two, social and memory. Those will be done in its own week that it's just dedicated to that. And I'll talk about those in a few minutes. But first thing I want to mention, if you now scroll up to the grading structure, you're going to see a couple changes to grade weights. And you're going to see one thing in blue in the specific assignments. So the things that changed in grade weights, participation is now going to be worth 5% instead of 10% because we only were in the classroom for half the semester. And as far as participation online, everything has a grade specifically attached to the assignment. So I don't need to grade you separately on participation, since if you're not participating in, say, a discussion board, you just aren't going to get a good grade on that assignment. So we cut that down. The group discussion on your article is going to be worth 10% instead of 20 because that was a category for all discussions. So realistically, what's going to end up happening is it's still worth 20%. It's just the group discussion for the article is going to be worth 10, and the other two online discussions that we do are going to be worth 5 each. And then we're going to have one assignment, which will be on personality. That's going to be like a short essay, a response paper. That'll also be worth 5%. So maybe I should have organized that it was 10%, 10%, and 5%, but I'd clump the online discussions and personality assignment together because they're all worth 5, and they'll be what we do online for the rest of the semester, basically. So that way that'll work out then is your article is going to be worth 10%. You're going to have a discussion board next week on memory that's worth 5%. The following week when we do the group discussions, it's going to be worth 5%. And I'm going to explain how that's going to work in a few minutes. And then we'll have a personality assignment that'll be a response paper that'll be due in 3 weeks when we talk about personality. The other change is now for your paper, still worth 25%. I have it highlighted in blue, but the weight didn't change. What changed is you can now write the paper we've talked about in class, or you can just write a traditional research paper. And I think, as much as I want to say I would recommend just doing the research paper, I think that really is going to be a person to person which they would rather do. So if you scroll down from there, you have the actual assignment for the research paper that's in blue now in the syllabus. And the research paper is a very traditional, simple research paper about a psychological disorder. Um, so, reading through it really quick: research paper on a psychological disorder of your choice. Use at least three academic sources. Papers 4 pages minimum. Uh, Make sure it's APA format, so you have a reference page and a title page. Reference page will cite all the research in APA style. You're going to submit that paper through Blackboard. What you're doing in it is adherence to format. APA format, it should be 4 pages, not three. That's a typo. I have to change that. But APA format, 4 pages, double space, normal margins. I need to see that you did research on whatever disorder you chose, that you understood the reading that you had on that disorder. And the last part is that you take a section to talk about everyday life and living with the disorder. All that stuff it's just traditional research for the most part that you're going to talk about, though you can put your own insight definitely through the everyday life and living section. But it's a very what you would expect for an intro to psychology assignment. I just actually took that from what I do when I teach over the summer and the accelerated semester. I just do the basic traditional research assignment. It's up to you which one of those two assignments that you end up doing. Um, if you are going to be able to do the behavior modification while you're at home and you don't think it's going to completely get ruined while we're social distancing and you want to do that, go for it. If you wanted to do something that's impossible or impractical to do now, then switch it over and just do the traditional research paper. Um, that way, it's just going to be an easier assignment. You don't have to deal with jumping through any hoops. Certain people are doing behaviors that, if you were doing profanity, there's a good chance that you might be using profanity a lot more during this time that you otherwise do. If you were going to the gym, you might not be able to. Dieting is a lot harder to do while we're quarantined. It just might be very impractical for a whole lot of you. If it is, then do the traditional research paper assignment. That part's up to you, because my guess is probably half or more of the class will be doing the research paper. What I'll do is, for anyone who's doing the behavior modification assignment, I'll just talk with them one-on-one about how that writes up and about what you need to do and everything like that. At this point, especially if you haven't started the behavior modification paper at all yet, I would do the research paper instead. If you've already started it and you're in the middle, that's a reason to stick to the behavior modification project. And then I'll kind of see if a lot of people are still doing the behavior modification project that they're reaching out to me. Maybe I'll do a Zoom conference call or a YouTube live stream that's just for those who are doing that assignment still. Last thing I want to mention, and then I will get to Carly. Actually, Carly, it looks like your question is about next week, so let me get to that first, and then I'll talk about the group discussion. Oh, no, your question is about the group discussion on the article, so let me talk all about that then. So the way that the group discussion is going to work for our articles, we have two groups that still needed to present. So we are going to technically have two different forums going at the same time. One forum will be for the memory group. The other forum is going to be for the social group. So if you are in one of those two groups, what you are going to have to do, sometime, it could be on Monday of the week that it's due, but I don't want it later than that. So sometime in the next, let's say that's about 10 days, your group is going to send me just through email a completed either PowerPoint. If you already were working on a PowerPoint, just finish up the PowerPoint, or a paper. That paper should be about a 2-page double-spaced paper, so it's not a lengthy essay. And that paper or PowerPoint should go over what was in your article. Just like if we were in the classroom, The rest of the class should be looking at the article, skimming through it, but that doesn't mean that they're an expert on it. Your group should be the expert on it. That should be what's in the paper or the PowerPoint. It should be, if it's a paper, something like 2 to 3 pages. If you're in a group of 5 in your group, that's saying each person's basically writing up about half of a page. If it's PowerPoint, a couple slides from each person, something like that. And that I'm going to post for everyone on that discussion forum. Then the other part of the assignment is going to be the actual answering discussion questions. And this is where it gets a little different than what we're going to do next week. So for next week, if you are not in either the memory group or the social group, you don't have a main post then to do. The main post for the people in those two groups is submitting that PowerPoint or that essay that I'm going to post on the discussion forum. But what you'll have to do if you're not in one of those two groups is, instead of just replying to two classmates like you are next week, you're going to have to reply to 2 classmates in the memory group and to 2 classmates in the social group. So you'll end up having to submit 4 replies as opposed to 2. Now, if you're in the memory group, so Carly, you're in the memory group, you're going to be submitting a PowerPoint for memory. You're going to have to then reply to 2 classmates on the social group. But obviously, you're in the memory group, so you don't have to worry about the memory group. So if you're in one of the 2 groups, you are replying to the other group to 2 of their questions, and you're submitting to me a PowerPoint or an essay for your group. The last part of this assignment is the discussion questions. Each person in the memory group and each person in the social group is going to be responsible for 1 discussion question. So instead of in the classroom where I tell you to come in with 10, you're going to each person have 1, but you are solely responsible for that 1 question. So what's going to happen if there's 5 people in the memory group? We will have, on the main post, I will have a PowerPoint for you or that essay that you submit to me. And then in terms of the actual discussion forums, each one of you will have a forum that you start with 1 question. And I can start those forums for you if you would like as well. If it's easier to organize, you can just email me the question. There's not really a difference between if I create the forum or you create the forum. So there will be 5 forums that'll have 1 question on each one of them. The rest of the class has to respond to 2 of those 5. Your job is to moderate whatever your question is. So if, Carly, if you're in the memory group, you have your question on memory. So whatever it is, what's your favorite color, just to make it simple. Obviously, it'll be about memory. Every single classmate that replies to your question, you have to then reply back to them. You don't have to do that for the other people in the memory group's questions unless you want to. But for your specific question, everyone that's going to be replying to your question, you're going to be replying back to them. So basically trying to simulate what we would be doing in the classroom. When you're replying back to them, you can just try to link them to other people who also replied to your post. You could say, oh, it seems like, oh, you have a lot of the same opinions as Kasha does. Or, hey, it's interesting, you seem to have a completely different stance that Michelle does, so on and so forth. And you can add some information as needed to them. You could just be linking them, but you're doing the same thing that you would be doing in the classroom. So if you're in the memory group, then you're going to have to check back on that forum that week multiple times. It's not going to be next week. Everyone will check onto that memory forum, write their post, and then check back one more time, reply to 2 classmates. If you're in the memory group, you're going to have to check back in for your forums question a few times throughout the week. And that's why that's going to be, that's your group presentation. It's going to be more work because that's going to be more involved. The PowerPoint, I'm not too concerned. That'll probably be pretty easy for you guys. Most of the groups, the social group and the memory group, might already have those done. And if you are not in either of the groups, then you just have to check in and answer the discussion questions, answer 2 for the memory group, 2 for the social group. Ideally, obviously, we'll spread those around so it's not that 2 of the 5 questions for memory have 10 replies each, and the other 3 of them only have like 3 replies for each one or anything like that. But that part is, reply to whatever you're interested in. And that's how that assignment's going to work. So the 10 points for the group discussion presentation is only for if you're in those two groups, the memory or the social group. It's going to be for the PowerPoint and moderating your question. The 5 points for the group discussion points for that is all about asking two questions for each one of those forms. Answering 2 questions for memory, answering 2 questions for social. If you're in the memory group, that whole 5% is just for you answering 2 questions from the social group. And if you're in the social group, that whole 5% is just answering 2 questions from the memory group. So you have if you're in one of the groups, you have a little less work to do for that 5%, but you have for your 10% group discussion, you have more to do because you're going to be moderating your forum pretty consistently. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions about that? Perfect. So I'm going to be filming some YouTube videos after I finish up with this. I'm going to have some lunch, and I'm going to be filming some video lectures. I'm going to be filming a screencast that just shows you how to post on the discussion board, how to find it if anyone doesn't know how to. Actually, that screencast I might not get to until tomorrow because I have to fill the memory folder first. But I will also be posting a video that is about that group discussion assignment. Basically, it's just going to say exactly what I just said in the live stream now, but I will post a video that's specifically to that. So if you need information about it a little later on, or Carly, you're communicating with the memory group, and some of them obviously aren't in the live stream right now, and you're trying to fill them in, it'll be a lot easier to just say, all right, just watch the professor's video, everybody, and we'll be able to talk about it from there. But all of that information you're going to start to see in the next 2 days. You're going to see most of the information for the whole class. There'll probably be 1 or 2 things I still need to add. But you should see all the folders for not just next week, but for the rest of the semester going forward. We're going to have memory next week, then our group discussions, then personality disorders, and then our final exam and our final paper. And that's basically how we finish up. If we end up with a lot of questions, a lot of changes that we need to make, we can always tweak that. But that'll bring us to a good concluding point for the semester. And I didn't see a lot of numbers changing throughout the hour with going down and coming back up. So my guess is that most of you that are here have been here the whole time. But if anyone did happen to come in and you didn't hear me talk about the syllabus with the schedule or what we're doing next week, just type something in the chat or shoot me an email really quick. So that way I can make a quick mention for you as well. Okay, so I did get an email from Catherine that was asking about, I think, the same question that Carly did. So Catherine, if you're here, if I didn't answer that question, well enough for you, because you were talking about the memory group discussion, how it's going to work, shoot me another email and I can chat about that a little bit more. And yeah, anyone who can't ask questions on the live because you don't have the YouTube account, and it's not cooperating with the asking it through the guest account, just shoot me emails. I'll always be checking my email as I'm doing this. The only difference is when you ask in the chat, I'm going to see it almost immediately. And if you're asking it through the email, I'm only going to be checking that every 10 or 15 minutes. So you'll have a little bit longer of a wait. But otherwise, it's no difference to me. I'll have both of them open. You can also be sending me a message through Snapchat or however we otherwise communicate. I don't think a lot of you guys took advantage of Snapchat for this class. Sometimes it gets hard because I just have a screen name on Snapchat that I'm replying to. I think most of it were from other classes. Um, but you can always ask me questions any which way that works. And as far as me, I'm going to be available to you all Monday to Friday pretty consistently. I'm doing live streams for all of my different classes, so it's not going to be very different than when we were face to face. In that you might send me an email, and it might take me a while to reply. Um, but other than it still potentially taking me a little bit to reply, I'm going to be at home just like everybody, pretty constantly. I do think I'm going to try to keep the weekends so that I can, spend some time with family. So I don't think I'm going to be very active on things over the weekends. I don't think you're going to see grades or content upload over the weekends, but I'll still be answering emails for questions that you might have. And that's basically, I think that's really all I need to make mention to. So if you have any questions that I didn't chat about, make sure you make a mention to them. Perfect. So uh, um, if you guys have any other questions, email me or send it through chat, and I'll make sure I address them. But otherwise, it's basically what I need to make mention to for today. So if you guys don't have other questions, pretty much just will be good for right now. You guys can leave the room. I will do these every Wednesday as long as people are attending them, and if people stop attending them, I'll just do them by scheduling. So if you have a question like, "Hey, do you have a couple minutes?" We'll just jump on a live stream and I'll talk about it. Um, yeah, if you have any questions about things, we can always do that either way. Even if you can't make it to a live stream on a Wednesday for some reason, we can always do a quick Zoom meeting or something like that. You can post it under exam 2, ideally, Carly. I mean, if you need to email it to me, by all means, email it there. It's easier for me if you submit it on Blackboard. You just submit it right where you got the assignment for exam 2, where the document was. If you click on the word exam 2, it'll bring you to a submission box. That will be easier. I do ask that everyone make sure that they submit it to me as either a PDF or a Word document. Please don't submit it as dot pages. I can't open those formats, so I'll have to email you and ask you to reformat them. I don't have any Apple products in my house. But other than that, it's easier for me if you submit it through Blackboard. But if you submit it through email, it's not the end of the world either. And the exam should be by end of the day Friday. Make sure that you get them up. I don't think I'm going to be looking at them over the weekend, but at the very beginning of next week, I think you'll see some grades going up. Just because it's an exam, maybe I'll do a little bit over the weekend, just because if I try to sit them and like all on Monday, I can't get through 100 different exams between this class and my other classes that have exams. I can't get through them all in one sitting. So maybe you'll see some over the weekend, but most likely you'll see the grades go up on Monday, maybe into Tuesday. So as far as how I'm going to teach you, I am going to you read the chapter just like you always should have been. You're going to look at the PowerPoint yourselves, but what I'm going to do is post a video on YouTube. That's not going to be in the live streams unless you guys have questions about a PowerPoint slide. I obviously can talk in the live streams about the PowerPoints, but I'll post a video that's separate that I post to YouTube, and I will put the link in the folder for the week for next week, for example. The difference, though, between if I was doing it in a classroom and what I'm going to do on YouTube is on YouTube, I'm going to try to aim for about 10 minutes. The ones I've recorded so far for other classes have consistently been like 11 minutes. My goal is that if I make it close to 10 minutes, let's say it's between 10 and 12 minutes, that everyone should watch the entire thing. Whereas when we're at home and we're dealing with all of our distractions and everything, if I try to post a 60-minute lecture, where I used to do this with podcasts, and it just doesn't work well. Like I said, I teach online quite a lot. And I wouldn't, for a normal online class, post a 60-minute podcast. because of that, because there's so much information that says when you do that, there's too much distraction. So what I will do is post 10 to 12 minutes of usually one thing or two things that are very important for that week. If you have questions about anything else, either from the PowerPoint or from the book chapter, email me and I can always post another video on that. But I'm going to make the only one required that's of me teaching will be thereabouts at 10 minutes. I will also always post some extra information in the Canvas shell. That will almost always be YouTube clips. There might be an exception, but looking at the chapters that we have left for memory, it'll definitely be some YouTube clips because there's a couple of really good not TED Talks, of Crash Course Psychology videos on memory. So I'm going to post those. Psychological disorders, I have a lot of YouTube videos that I already have on different psychological disorders. So I'm going to give you all of that as complimentary information. Personality is the only one I might use a TED Talk maybe, or something like that. There's a lot of different ways I can go with personality. But I need to find something complementary that'll help with the psychodynamic mind, which is Freud, the id, ego, and superego. So the idea being you will always have about a 10-minute video of me lecturing and probably thereabouts of 20 total minutes of other information that's complementary. The video of me teaching is the one I would say is required. The other videos that I post, I highly recommend, but they wouldn't be required. Book chapter, PowerPoint. And then if you need anything else, if you aren't understanding something, let me know. And I'll post something, either we can Zoom one-on-one and just talk about it, just like it would be in an office hour or after class. Or I'll post another video going into something in some more detail, just in case you know other people had the same question that you did, which could definitely happen. So that's how I'm intending on things happening. Between the assignment, the video lecture, the other complimentary lectures, it's probably going to be close to about the same normal amount of class time. When you're taking a look at the PowerPoint, in the beginning of the video, I'll make a quick mention to what I'm going to go over. So whatever slides I'm going over, look at them in the PowerPoint while I'm going over them. But the slides that I go, really quickly through, those slides, make sure you just take a look at those slides on your own. Yeah, exam could be due on Friday. I actually made that mistake while I was talking to you. I forgot that I posted that it was due at the end of the day today. But Friday's fine. I won't mark it late. I'm not going to change the due date for those who weren't in the live stream. Let them get it in on Wednesday by today, so that way I can get some graded a little earlier. But if you submit it by Friday, I won't mark it late. I misspoke in that because I have it due on Friday for my other intro to psychologies. But yeah, if you need the time until Friday, don't worry. It will on Blackboard show up as late, but I won't take any points off as long as it's in by Friday. That was a good catch. I totally would never have thought about that if you didn't say something. But as soon as I read your comment, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I definitely switched that up between this class and another class. I know for sure that's going to happen a few times for me. That's the thing that's been the hardest for me teaching online is because I have so many classes, they're blending together a little more than they should. So there's little things that are different between our intro to psychology and my other intro to psychology, and those are definitely blending together. So unfortunately, that might happen another time or two. The big assignments are all the same. Like we're all doing the exam this week. Next week we're all doing memory, but there's a couple little tiny details that are different that are unfortunately going to blend together for me. I'm going to have to try to keep very extra care keeping track of that. Kasha, do you have any other questions for me? We're right about at that hour mark that I cut my stream from that, but I don't want to rush you. If you have any questions, I'll hang as long as you need. As I finish my ice cold coffee by now. Excellent. If you do have questions, you email me. It is so easy. I can't stress that enough. It is so easy for me. If you have a question that I need to actually talk about, go over, as opposed to just like those quick type of questions for emails, it's so easy for me to just go live on YouTube or to open up a Zoom with you. It's never a problem. Um, the only problem becomes scheduling the time, because obviously you could send an email, I might not see it until you're now busy. But it is so easy for me to hop on one of these, even if it's not on a Wednesday, just to go over something with you. Email whatever questions, shoot me an email, and we'll always figure it out. Otherwise, I am going to actually end the stream because I am watching the news and they're having a new statement from Governor Cuomo. And since Jersey and New York are both the hotbeds, I'm very curious. So if you do have questions, shoot me an email. And otherwise, I will see everyone, I guess, next week with these and talk to you through emails. All right.